Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beneath Your Feet. My name is Shoreless, and this is the monthly Beneath Your Feet podcast research stream. I'm so glad you're hanging out with me today on this beautiful, what day is it? Tuesday? This beautiful Tuesday afternoon, the last Tuesday of the month. So that means it's Beneath Your Feet time. I'm here hanging out with Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll hobbit, on the beautiful, if a little bit sluggish, Landreval server. Now, why are we on the Landreval server? As I'm bipping, I'm bopping, I'm going all over the place between Treebeard and Landreval and lots of these other places. So why are we here on Landreval tonight rather than my usual Treebeard? Well, I'm just absolutely thrilled that you asked, and that's because today we have to go to Mordor. Oh, there it is, Mount Doom. It's terrifying. Well, why are we in Mordor? Well, tonight's stream is going to be a wee bit different than usual. Usually, what we're doing is touring around some different zones in the game or one region in particular, just doing a bit of research, looking for Easter eggs, trying to learn more about the zone so that I can put those goodies into my monthly podcast and have lots of fun details to talk about and things like that. Today, I want to get in deep with the lore for something that was created simply by Standing Stone Games. It's not really, kind of, sort of ish is in the books, but not really. And I'm talking about the Stout-axe dwarves. So what I would love to do for my next episode, I was running around thinking about how I've got so many episodes about pleasant things. I haven't really done a bad guy, quote unquote, territory since I did Isengard and Nan Kurenir, which was like more than a year ago, maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. And even then, it's not Mordor. Mordor is where the big bads are. And even though I've been doing this podcast for ages, I have never done an episode about Mordor, I don't think. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do Mordor, what would be kind of a fun region to focus on? Well, I really like the Stout Axes. I think they have a very interesting story. I think that they're very, I don't know, they're just very neat aesthetically. And but I'm not all that familiar with their lore. I have a couple Stout Axe characters. I've played through the intro and some of the quests like that. Um, but I've only done their quest line one time. And when you're questing, sometimes especially if you're like me, you have a hard time focusing. Maybe you don't want to read. You just kind of want to get it done. So I watched one video from the Bard. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I'm gonna find his name and I'll post it later. But he does these amazing, wonderful videos where they're kind of like what I do, but way better in that they kind of recap the story for the epic quest line, and his goes through the tale of the Stout Axes on into the War of Three Peaks, and it was so good that it made me want to go back and do this quest line again to make sure that I got my facts straight and that I paid attention a little bit more to the Stout Axe storyline. And also, we're coming back to this. I'm coming back to this personally. We're going through it together tonight. To In light of the Blood of Ozog update, which came out last year. The Blood of Ozog was, if I remember correctly, the last update before they launched the Gundabad expansion last year, and it kind of set that up, and it did a really good job of telling the history of the Battle of Azanulbazar. It was very cool, and my favorite part of the whole thing was how it brought in all 7 of the dwarf houses. The appendices of the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, to a degree, make reference to this great battle at Azanulbazar. That's where Thorin Oakenshield got his name, because he lost a shield. He picked up a big piece of oak, and he used it as a shield to defeat some of the big bad orcs. So it's a very famous battle, but the details are a bit scant. No dwarf houses are ever named in the appendices besides Durin's folk. It's just called the Houses of the Fathers. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the phrase that's used. And so what Standing Stone did was they took that and just kind of ran with it. And they created, oh, I forgot how ridiculous Mordor is. They created the 6 other Houses of the Fathers with a little bit of help from the appendices and from the histories of Middle-earth, and made some just stellar designs. I actually went in today. I don't do a lot with the LOTRO wiki because I'm just not that good at wikiing. But I did go on there today to make sure I uploaded the pictures of the banners of the different houses of the dwarves because they're so good, and the different aesthetic and design of the different dwarves is really cool and kind of inclusive. And man, I just loved it. And so what I wanted to do was take that knowledge, take what we know from the books, and go back and have a look at the Stout-axes. And most importantly, we are going to be looking at this little horror right here, the Tower of Lûghash, the Flaming Spire. Because this is where it all begins. This is where we are first introduced to the Stout-axes, and we learn more about them and their history, their sad history. All stories of Middle-earth are sad, but especially those of the stubborn dwarves. And we're going to go back and do that today. Problem is, I'm not quite ready. So I got to go back and do the precursor to this storyline, which is the Land of Ash and Shadow. I did this on my Bjorning. I don't think I ever did it on my Burglar. So we're going to do what Legolas wants us to do and go scout out Barad-dûr. But here's where you all come in. How you doing? Where you been? I want to hear from you what you like about the Stout-axes, what you remember about them, how you think they fit into the greater legendarium, just your thoughts on the Stout-axes. So, yeah, I hope y'all are doing well. We got a few in the chat now, and I would love to hear from all of you. Like I said, what you think about the dwarves in general, where you think the Stout-axes fit in, and, let's talk dwarves. So how y'all doing? What's going on as we traverse the Black Land? There we go. So we're coming up on Barad-dûr. Galdwin says, I like that their intro kind of works for RP purposes, unlike the High Elf one. That's a good point. Galdwin, how you doing? Always great to see you. Thanks for being here. But she's talking about the fact that in the Stout-axe intro, it does a good job of explaining how you got to where you were. Well, I think that's what you're talking about. You can stop me if I'm wrong. It does a good job of explaining where you're at, where you've been, where you're to. You escape. I mean, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but basically you escape Mordor, and then you find your way to the Blue Mountains with the other dwarves. And it gives you a nice little character backstory to work with. The High Elf one, again, don't want to do too many spoilers, but long story short, you've been in a coma for a while, and they kind of try to set it up. They try to give you some, what's up? My stuff's falling down. They do try to give you some motivation and explain why your High Elf is out there in the world, but it's not quite as accessible, at least I don't think, as the Stout-axe one. Is that kind of what you meant, Godwin? Here we go. Yeah. So the Mordor expansion, okay, so my LOTRO history is a bit sordid. And so I wasn't around when this dropped, but I came back and did it. When I came back for like full force, which about 2 years ago now, I did this. And I thought it was super cool. I know a lot of people complained about it. They said it was like a little bit too ridiculous. But I quite enjoyed it. As usual, the aesthetics are very pleasing. So we're in Mordor after the fact, kind of tending to the power vacuum that's been created. And then, of course, we get to see Barad-dûr in bad shape. Werewolves in the house. Yeah, the as an Ulbazar instance, not really an instance, but that whole time warp scene is super cool. It only gets a passing mention in the book. There's a few paragraphs. It's a great, as usual, Tolkien's kind of economy is really good. Like, he's able to make a big impact with a few words. And so even the little bit that's in the book is impactful. Okay, am I totally going the wrong way? Oh my gosh. Scout the causeway to the ruins of Barad-dûr. Why is it telling me to scout the causeway to the ruins of Barad-dûr over there? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. All right, well, this will be cool. We'll have a little fun with this, with my error. I also like how it seemed like maybe this happened. Okay, what I'm thinking about is the implementation and inclusion of female dwarves. We got a little bit of that with Dees, obviously. There's some mention of female dwarves in other dwarf stories. We meet Mother Amma here in Erebor. Here we are in the lovely Away Shall Fade Kin House here in Landreval. Why are we here? I'll tell you in a second. But I like that they really worked in the narrator for Azanul Bazaar. They worked in, I think in Good to Bad, they worked in the backstory. And, there's just a lot of inclusion of female dwarves that I think they hadn't really done before, which is super cool. Gondo Man has high praise for the dwarves as well. I totally agree with that. I think they did a good job. And one thing that they've done, let me tell you what I just did there. Rather than having to make a complete fool of myself and run all the way back across Udun or Dora Marth, I went to the Kin House and used our special Mordor door. So now I get to go drunk around the Blackland now. So Gondelman was saying that the writers and world builders did a good job in fleshing out the dwarves. I think so too. I think a lot of people, myself included, are a little bit burnt out on the dwarves, and here I am doing a podcast episode on them. But just because they've been the focus of the main story for like years now, so I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Yes, I've muddled my wits. Tipsy's here, give me a ride, man. This would be my all-time mount without question if it didn't have that blur effect. And yeah, I know I can go into post-processing and turn it off and stuff like that, but I don't want to do that. It's as fun as it is. Oh no, we notice a dwarf laying on the side of the causeway. What? I didn't read that. This is just a normal stream for me when I'm all over the place like this. A goat is saddled and laden with supplies and trinkets. Slain Stout-axe. The dwarf lies slain in queer armoring. Not touching that one. Rod of dark steel, the shield remains unblemished despite the fate of its wielder. Interesting. All right, let's go talk to Gimli. My wee boy Gimli. So what I was saying was that the dwarves of LOTRO have very explicitly kind of taken on their own character in a way that I think is respectful and also in connection with the book. I'm thinking specifically of one of Scenario's live stream where he talked about how there were some complaints when they introduced Thorns Hall that it was maybe too built up, that it didn't make sense in the timeline to have this big place that was kind of like a refuge for Thorns people while they were in exile. But and you can make the same argument for other dwarf settlements around the world. Like I'm thinking of Othrakar, which was the dwarf town in the North Downs. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. And he said that they specifically wanted their dwarves to be more industrious, and which makes sense. And so I think, the fact that they were intentional in the way they were doing their dwarves, they're very mild derivations from the source material, I think makes sense. Yeah, totally. Gondaman says that he is interested. I don't know who you are. They are interested in seeing the glittering caves with Gimli. A wee boy Gimli. I totally agree. So even though the dwarf storyline is kind of coming to an end, we will no doubt go back to the Aglarond with our wee boy Gimli there. Yeah, Werewolf is asking. So what I'm about to do is begin the introduction to the Stout-axes, and Werewolf was making the point. Was wondering about how this would play out as a Stout-axe. That's a great question. I wonder if I could get my Stout-axe. Should we do that? Should we do that? We're going to do that, you guys. I'm surprised we're not doing that right now. I've got a Stout-axe that I think is high enough to do this. In the words of the Lion King, it is time. Heck yeah, Valar boost from anniversary. I boosted this dude ages ago. I think like maybe last year when they went on sale, and I never touched him. So you guys are going to get to say hey to Corpin, my Stout-axe hunter. Excuse me, no COVID. Werewillow, you most assuredly did start a thing, my friend. Now the question is my computer going to participate? There we go. All right, Corpin, Stout-axe hunter, 120. We got this. Here we go. Now, as I said, I Valared this dude and then just kind of forgot about him. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how well prepared he is for this situation, but he's about to go home. Yeah, we're taking a Stout-axe through here right now. through the magic of the Mordor door. And the only reason this is going to work is because with the Mordor door, you can skip over the intro epic quest. Because normally, if you're doing it properly, you have to go through Ithilien and then to the Moranon, and you have to play through the battle. But I think, fingers crossed, I think I can just go ahead and do this through the Mordor door. But again, I don't even know if this guy is spec'd properly. Okay, we're blue spec. That'll work. Do I even have any virtues on this guy? All right, all right. He's in okay shape. But did I sort out my new legendary? Lûghash. Is that right? Yeah, that's the new one. It doesn't have a lot of stuff on it. We have no words of. It's not fully maxed out, but that's okay. All right. Now, if you missed it, we're gonna have this little aside here. I did start making a YouTube series last month about organization. You should check that out. I think it's already off my radar. That just happens sometimes. I'll get fixated on a project and then it goes away. But check it out. Let me know what you think, and if you think I should keep going with it. This guy's making me think I need to do so. My computer's being so fussy today. It is wearing me out, y'all. All right, Galadwin says, while you're logging in, but what, the mystery portal in Thorns Hall. Oh. Okay, so if you missed it, when we did the Homesteads episode a while back, we discovered live on stream a random portal. Okay, sorry. I'm going to finish this first because I don't understand why my travel window is not working. Travel window 2. Okay, it's loaded, but where did it go? There it is. Okay. When we were going through the Thorns Hall homestead, we saw just a random portal. So here, let me get to my kin house first. Galvin's like, let me derail you. Yeah, well, hey, it doesn't take much. Can you believe I teach school professionally? It's like a squirrel every 10 seconds. My stuff is just falling. Oh, it was Gandalf. Okay, so that was I bonked the shelf, and then old Gandalf fell down. All right. Here we go now. So we found a portal that is kind of like the door you're about to see, just floating by a waterfall. And we couldn't, so that whole little portal, that little portal graphic there was just one floating in space. And we tried jumping in it a few times. I think Galadwin tried a few times, kind of, a couple other people tried to figure it out. But then we were just informed by Galadwin that it's gone now. Very interesting. So at least we know they're watching. Yeah, dude, travel window's the best. It's so tidy. So in case you missed that, this is, I don't know where this came from. If you have not watched B4's stream about plugins, you should watch it. And that's where I first saw it. So you get this little suitcase and all your travel skills, your milestones, your house skills, for Hunter, all your other skills go there, and you just click on it. It's all nice and tidy. Now, Gondoman was asking about my YouTube channel. Yeah, I'll post a link in there. Let's do it now before I fully derail myself again. Man, we haven't even gotten to the meat and the potatoes of this episode, and we're all over the place. It's pure chaos, but it's wonderful. Yeah, dude, travel window. I'm here for it. All right, so anyway, there's a link to my YouTube channel. What I do there is I post podcast episodes, nothing special. But then I've started posting shorts and other just random silly videos for as long as that lasts. I don't know how long that's going to last. Man, this dude is not looking, that looks pretty good. He is not looking super stylish. We got to look right when you're traversing the wilds of Mordor. All right, anyway, I think this is going to work, friends. All right, yes, we're right back where we started. Yes. So we're going to find out now what happens when a Stout-axe returns home. So this is another total aside, but I absolutely love the quest for Bjornings. When you get back to Bjorn's house, there's a quest chain that only Bjornings get called Welcome Home or something like that. And because all the Bjornings are supposed to be related, you go and see your family and you do chores. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Man, I wish they would do that with other races. That would be so cool. I think they could do that with dwarves. Like if you're from Erebor and you go back to Erebor, if you're a man and you're from Rohan, you go back to Rohan. They could have little quests like that, man. It would be so cool and tasteful. And I don't think we're going to get that today with our Stout-axes, but let's just find out. Okay. All right. So here, I'm having some deja vu here, friends. The goat's dead. Now we're going to go back and talk to our boy Gimli. What else do we need to talk about? Where Willow will not actually go home for quite a long time. Sorry, bud. What else do we need to talk about? Oh, we need to talk about race class combos, friends. We need to talk about race class combos. So I spent most of my LOTRO career just kind of detoxing and being accepting of the variations that they pull on the lore. I will never play a Runekeeper. That's just my pet peeve, and I don't think I'm too old to change at this point. And I understand that people are very passionate about the lore and the adherence to the lore in this game. But I try not to go crazy. However, Hobbit lore masters? Are we really doing that? How do you feel about Hobbit lore masters? Let's get controversial here, gang. Hobbit champion, kind of, sort of. You can kind of see like a murder Hobbit. I think Hobbit captain would have made way more sense because you have the examples of Merry and Pippin, Sam to a degree. Hobbit lore master, though? Hobbit slinging fireballs? Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Galvin. I'm not going to throw a hissy fit. I tweeted a tweet, and that's all I'm going to do to get it out of my system. But I'm just not crazy about it. But I know people who, like, love the game and love the lore, and they don't care. They're stoked on it, so I don't know. I'm just trying to, like, imagine a Hobbit lore master. But I digress. Maybe that could be next month's show. Let's get into it. Now we're finally where we need to be. We're going to learn some more about the Stout-axes. What is this? You tell Gimli of the slain dwarf you bound and offer him the shield. You should offer him the shield. By your description of his wound, the dwarf you encountered must have been caught by a stray stone thrown from the depths of Mount Doom. A poor dwarf indeed, but not one slain by malice. The Dark Lord must not have brought my kin to ruin after all. The shield is newly forged and crafted by skilled. Oh, so dwarves still dwell in Mordor, but where have they made their home? I don't know. What's up? A Hobbit Bjorning. The closest you're going to get to a Hobbit Bjorning is a Hobbit lore master, because you can have your pet, your cosmetic pet, and your lore master pet. So you can't. And you just put on like a bear cosmetic, you'll be ready to go. Aye, this is a tricky land. I do not know what beast could live in such a place, but the dwarves are hardy folk. These dwarves of Mordor must dwell somewhere in the Doomfold, but perhaps they do not wish to be found. If they make use of dwarf doors, as the House of Durin once did in Khazad-dûm, you and I both know that even the most thorough search would never bear fruit. Let us hope it does not come to that. You found the dwarf near the causeway that leads to the Dark Tower, didn't you? If you ask me, no dwarf but one as hale as you or I would be. Okay, there's our first derivation, that he refers to me as a dwarf. Okay, good enough. Patrol the causeway. All right, let's go. I'm surprised not patrolling the causeway right now. Yeah, I can see that. So where Willow's talking about the argument that hobbits just kind of have this intuition with nature, I could kind of see that, yeah. This fireball is a bit tricky. I mean, even then, I think my understanding is, I don't know about how they're conjuring lightning, but my understanding of like the sticky gourd and things like that is basically that it's just a contraption that lets them do fire. My real gripe with the lore is that most hobbits are not book learned, but, I just mentioned Merry and Pippin being examples of hobbit captains. Maybe Frodo's kind of a hobbit lore master. I don't know. They did pass by that talking fox in the Three's Company chapter, so I don't know. All right, so Elgaladwin has mentioned the elf burglar. Let's talk about elf burglar for a second here. Here's why I'm kind of okay with elf burglar. What they should have done, especially because they could, based on my little understanding of Dungeons and Dragons Online, they could just change the class name a wee bit. Like instead of a burglar, make it an elf scout. It could be exactly the same class, maybe except for one or two skills. But like riddles, being sneaky, all of that makes sense for an elf. We have, some examples of that, lots of examples of that actually in the books of sneaky elves and very clever elves using wordplay and riddles and things like that. But it's the thieving bit. The thieving bit is the problem. So even if they just like the only difference was that it was called an elf scout instead of an elf burglar, and they removed the burgle skill, which is inconsequential to this game anyway, I think that would have been okay. So I'm okay with like elf scout, sneaky elves, riddling elves. That's fine. But the thieving, that was the reason why they hired Bilbo in the first place. Dwarves aren't really known for their thieving. Longbeards anyway. Same thing with elves. Went the wrong way. So, and that kind of brings us back to where we are now with the fact that stout-axes can be burglars. Now that makes sense because they're not Longbeards. They don't have this weird long honorable tradition. As we see now, they are just kind of disheveled slaves and newly liberated slaves at that, who have kind of had to learn how to sneak and prowl here in Mordor. Elf rogue, yeah, elf rogue. Yeah, I mean, and I think to a degree, I'm going to read this in a second because that's kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. To a degree, we all have our own headcanon. So, like, whatever, however whether it's just your backstory for your character or however you work out like Bjornings, for example. We spent a lot of time on the stream talking about Bjornings one time and how they're all supposed to be related in LOTRO, but how that can't really be. So however you kind of suss things out in your own mind, I think that's okay. I think a lot of people burn out on games in general, but especially a game like this because they don't put anything into the game. So if we can put a little imagination into the game, especially as lore nerds, it can help us kind of overcome a lot of obstacles and increase our enjoyment. There, I've said it. There, I've said it. I'm done. Okay, we're just giving him water. He's not actually going to talk to us. Yeah, drink what I got, boys. Don't drink whatever that sludgy Mordor water is. I guarantee you it tastes like nuclear fallout. I'll zoom in a bit here. So I like that the stout-axes were kind of like allowed them to have a redo with the Longbeards because they have the kind of cosmetic aesthetic updates and they can be burglars. Like they can kind of work outside the rules a wee bit. So that's pretty cool. Blazaronk. Yeah, is that black speech? What is that? Y'all get on that. What is it? Why are you bothering? Spakorth turns and flinches at once upon seeing you. A fellow dwarf. Why have you come here? One of Spakorth's expedition calls to him. You do not mean this harm, Sauron told us. Perhaps he did not mean it for the dwarves after all. Let us speak and I shall decide if we have been misled. Okay, so he recognizes me as a dwarf, but not as a stout-axe. That's interesting. It has been long since my folk last spoke to outsiders, especially those with the might to bring him low. For what purpose have you come to these lands? To liberate its people? Conquest? I suppose it does not matter now. You are here, and so that is all. The deathless may not see it so, but their quarrels are their own. I must ask, who is he referring to, the deathless? You are here. So we can... I don't know. I must ask, in your vast armies, were there any others like us? We have seen naught of our kin and cousins in the lands beyond Mordor since the early days of our folk in the mountains to the east, and I am gladdened to learn that we are not the last dwarves in this realm. You look a mighty stout-axe indeed, but were there any others among your company? You tell Spakorth of Gimli and of the House of Durin's folk. So another of my kin has come to these lands as well, and one from the old House of Durin, no less. If he so wishes it, I would much desire to meet him. Tell this Gimli of the stout-axes of Mordor, if he wishes to meet with me, I would have us forge a new peace free of Sauron. Well, so far, he's not really surprised that I'm a stout-axe. He's not like, oh my gosh, I heard about somebody escaping a couple years ago. Was that you, bro? He's not really doing that. I rolled a stout-axe the other day. Baltic. Yeah, I don't know. That's good. I would love to know that. So if you find out exactly what that is, what where their names come from, where Willow, I'd love to hear that. Oh, okay, the deathless are the Gurziel. Yeah, the Gurziel. Yeah, those Black Numenorians and other, basically the people who are trying to take over Mordor now that Sauron has been ousted. So so far, not too much difference there, but that does give us an opportunity to talk a little bit about where maybe the Stout-axe has come from. So he mentioned the East, and we know a little bit about the other houses of the dwarves, really just from the Silmarillion and the appendices. They tell us about Novgorod and Belegost, and then the histories of Middle Earth. In particular, there's a bit in the Peoples of Middle Earth. I can't remember which volume that is. That talks about dwarves and men and other sort of notations that Tolkien made but never properly published. And he talks about there being the Longbeards in the north, the two houses in the west in the Blue Mountains, who would have been the Firebeards and the Broadbeams, and then in the east were the Iron Fists, the Stiffbeards, the Blacklocks, and the Stonefoots. Now, my understanding, and you guys please correct me if I'm wrong, is that because the team only has access to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, and the appendices only mention Novgorod and Belegost, they don't actually mention the names of the houses of the dwarves, they had to get a wee bit creative. And kind of, if you guys are longtime watchers, you might recall our Eregion episode in the Ring Forges, and they did the same thing with Sauron. They had to change his Elvish name because that was not officially mentioned in the Lord of the Rings. Let's talk more about that in a second. Gimli says, "You found them after all. Oh ho, tell me of them." You tell Gimli of the Stout-axe dwarves of Mordor and of their origins in the mountains in the east. You also mention that Spakorth has asked to meet with Gimli in the muddied cistern of Blazronk to the east. Stout-axe dwarves, I've never heard of a house by that name in all my years. I'm a Stout-axe, bud. I'm a Stout-axe. Perhaps it was named given them by the Dark Lord, or their line was broken. Gimli appears initially perplexed by this news, but a wave of merriment soon washes over his face. Still, they did you no harm, so I shall hear this Spakorth's words. Legolas lets out a stern cough. Oh, you think they're up to something, do you? Well, for all I know of them, they might well be. Why don't you come along too, Legolas? Let us go to Blazronk. Yeah, I'm surprised they're not going to Blazronk right now. I am just as surprised as you to find the door. I'm from here, my guy. All right, so again, part of this wonderful little experiment was seeing if the text would be at all different with a Stout-axe. Does this guy not actually Stout-axe? Did I make a mistake? No, he's a Stout-axe. You see, you got that Valar, sweet Valar gear. That, well, okay. I will say no more. Stout-axes, I must admit, I have many questions I wish to ask about the early years of their folk and how they came to dwell here. There is so much to be learned from them, so much to be learned for the dwarves. Even if they toiled under the Dark Lord, I'd wager they're still a lot better than the Dour Hands. See, Legolas, it's not like he's got evil eyes painted all over him. I think it's time we properly introduce ourselves. Yeah, all right. Have a little chit-chat, a little mingler, a little mixer, a little meet and greet. All right, so anyways, it appears that what they did was they took those 6 other houses that were not Longbeards and did some tricky renaming. And so, for example, the Combrata, who became the Stout-axes, were originally named for the Stonefoot. No, not the Stonefoots, the Iron Fists. And so again, I'm sorry. Iron Fists are the Zelruka. I'm all confused-icated. The Stiffbeards. So again, we don't really know much about the Stiffbeards, apart that they're mentioned in the histories of Middle Earth, but they had to do something about it. And so for each of those houses, they appear in that as an Ulbazar flashback, and we get to see what they look like, their armor, we get to see their battle standards and things like that. And I never really made the connection between the Combrata and the Stout-axes, but that's where they came from initially. And I think we're going to get some more details here in a second about where the break kind of happened. Yeah, it is weird, Elgalwin, the way they're just like, I don't know you. Like, especially with the high elf. Like, bro, I'm 3,000-ish years old. You really don't know who I am? I'm the guy that was in a coma in Elrond's house for millennia. All right, so they've had their little chat. Spakorth says, Gimli seems a fine dwarf, and I'm glad to have met him. He has many questions, and I am pleased to say that I can provide him many of the answers he seeks if there is time enough. I have questions of my own. We Stout-axes hold little sway in Mordor, but we dwell in peace within the flaming spire under the rule of Mistress Zorith. We are no dwarf kingdom of old, but we are not so few as to be forgotten in this land, for even Sauron could not forget us. If you or Gimli wish it, you are welcome to visit our home in Lûghash, provided the mistress does not find out, of course. But if she didn't know you were there, sounds a little mischievous. Once the Stout-axes were a great kingdom of dwarves, but over many long years our fate diminished and we became slaves and servants to the powers of Mordor. Early in this age, Sauron reclaimed the ring given to our folk, and we still dwelt in the east. He sought for it some use of the men of far-off lands, and he would not hear the protests of our king of old. Even deprived of its power and the symbol of our house, Sauron considered us his allies, and he welcomed us in Mordor. Ah, had it been but that. When he came to us next, the Stout-axes were unmade. 78 years ago, Sauron returned to Mordor in a rage, and all the favor we had earned was cast aside. He destroyed our kingdom and took our king to the dungeons of the Dark Tower. We had a home no longer, and so we lived only at the mercy of the men of Mordor. Okay, what am I missing? Let me finish reading this because I feel like I missed something. Now Sauron is gone, but we still serve, lowly as we are now in the eyes of all in Mordor. None but the mistress of Lûghash, Zorith, would have us, and so now we serve her. She desires the weapons and trinkets of the Dark Lord above all else, but what portion of his might remains in them I cannot say. We have sought them since his fall, but every search has come to naught. Days, all right, etc., etc. There are 4 other expeditions about in this land. Okay, all right. But he said, I want to go back and look at this because I feel like I missed something. We were a great kingdom. Okay, that's the Combrata that I mentioned earlier, which relate to the Stiffbeards that are mentioned in the histories. Early in this age, the third age, Sauron reclaimed the ring given to our folk when we dwelt in the east. Okay. I don't think that's ever explicitly talked about in the books, but obviously, very famously, Sauron either reclaimed all of the dwarf rings or the dragons ate them. And they were given in the second age, by the way, so there's a gap there. So second age, the Combrata are given the ring 3,000 years ago at the beginning of the third age, and Sauron returns after the Númenorian downfall. He's looking around for the ring that he gave to the Combrata. He sought for it some use on the men of far-off lands, and he would not hear the protests of our king of old. The power of some of our house Sauron considers us, and he welcomed us in Mordor. So does that mean that okay, it's hard to imagine the entire nation of Combrata coming into Mordor as like buddies with Sauron, so maybe just like a group came with the king. When he came to us next, the Stout-axes were unmade. 78 years ago, Sauron returned to Mordor. But they're talking about when Sauron came back to Mordor after the White Council kicked him out of Dol Guldur during the events of The Hobbit. 78 years ago, Sauron returned to Mordor in a rage, and all the favor we had earned was cast aside. He destroyed our kingdom and took our king to the... So, I don't know what that means. When we... I am thinking about Rune. We talked about this a little bit last month, in that we get a little bit of the backstory of Rune from some characters really in this part of the timeline, and they talk about how the bad guys unleashed this plague in the east, and then when we go to the Iron Hills, we see more and more Easterlings coming. The Zelruka come, who are from basically the same region as these guys, come as well. So maybe he's saying that 78 years ago. So that's like not even a generation for the dwarves. So I feel confused. What do you guys think? What are we to make of this? Is he saying that Sauron and his armies between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings wiped out the Stout-axes, and then took the rest to Mordor to be slaves? Were they given land in Mordor and then kept here while their kingdom was destroyed? I don't know. Let's keep going. Maybe we'll get some more info. It's a wee bit confusing. All right, what else you got for us, bud? Lûghash rises to the east, nestled within a rocky hill atop a deep valley. Alas, the Stout-axes are not the only ones in service to the mistress of Lûghash. You see, Mistress Zorith has grown emboldened since the fall of the Dark Lord, and she has drawn many vile spirits. Okay, that's fine. We're gonna kick these guys out. No problem, pal. So let's start. All right, let's see. Where do we go next? It's kind of fun. I hardly ever do questing on these streams. It's kind of nice. We figured out yet? What's the scoops? the mysterious history of the Stiffbeards. They also, so if you didn't realize, I didn't realize this until I started looking into it earlier today. They were in that as an old bizarre flashback. They were the ones that had the kind of, I thought they looked kind of like Russian, which made sense. They looked like medieval Slavic kings. So I never made that connection. I'm trying to find a picture to show you guys, but I guess I can do that later. All right, here we go. What's up, bud? I've not played Hunter in so long. I really hope I don't make a fool of myself. But I guess I got 20 levels on this guy, so we're probably going to be okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay. Excuse me. Keep it zoomed in so we can get a good look. I also love, I thought it was a smart move that they did another flashback to the Battle of the Last Alliance, and we see Mordor 3,000 years ago, and the contrast between Mordor when it wasn't completely terrible to the way it is now after the defeat of Sauron. I thought that was pretty cool. Sit down. All right, so it looks like those circles are where our dwarf friends are. So let's see, there should be one dead ahead this way. But remember, we're in Mordor, so one false move, and we are... The floor really is literally lava here in Mordor, so we got to be extra careful. Literally. And there's a tower back there. Okay. Gotta hydrate. There they go. What's up, boys? Cool. Yeah, so I was working on the inventory videos. I started doing just a bunch of silly, like, meme videos. I'm trying to decide if I want to keep up with it. What I find is that, like I said, I'm a teacher. So in the summertime, I just find I have more free time for goofy projects. That's what I decided to put my brain power towards last month. But this month being July, I really got to get focused because I've got a game I'm kickstarting. So I'll be sure to tell you more about that once we get nearer to Kickstarter launch time. Rukazad, baby. That's really turns and fleets. Oh, that's not good. All right, good enough. That is a certified bummer that our friends make no mention of the fact that I'm a Stout-axe. I wonder if they try to cover that up somehow. Like when you go back to the Blue Mountains after the Stout-axe intro, maybe you're trying to fit in as a Longbeard. I don't know. That doesn't sound right. I'm not sure. Because I think Dwalin, if I remember correctly, Dwalin tells you, like, oh, you're welcome here as a Stout-axe. We're not racist. But I don't know. All right. Let's find some more of our buddies. Where'd they go? There they are. Back to Lûghash. Here we go. Am I the only one who obsessively checks their quest tracker all the time? That's me. Because if I don't, what happens is like the beginning of the stream where I just shoot right past where I'm supposed to go. Yeah, ooh. These Stout-axes maybe had a spill. That's too bad. All right, we got one more statue, one more group of Stout-axes, and we can go on. Oh, that's an orc. This is cool. This is the one of the big statues of Sauron. Sauron the Great, because that's how he's depicted in the Second Age, I guess. In all those Dol Guldur flashbacks, we see him in this crazy-looking Dark Lord outfit. I guess that wouldn't be the Second Age, because in the Second Age, that's the splash screen that we had forever and ever. Good enough. All right, one more group of Stout-axe boys, and then we get up out of here. Totally going the wrong way. Okay. The dwarves are extremely interesting. I was a bit of a dwarf fanboy for a number of years, because the info we have on them is so scant and like a little bit contradictory. But and I say contradictory because in The Hobbit, we don't get a great impression of Thorin and company. They seem like kind of idiots at a certain point. And there's even a line in the book where the narrator says something like, dwarves are okay if you don't expect too much of them. Some of them are bad. Some of them are actually heroic. And then we see the sort of icon or archetype of Gimli in The Lord of the Rings, who's like a great hero and very reasonable and becomes friends with Galadriel and Legolas and all these things. And so I always found those two to kind of be in contrast. And I think there's some answers there if you get into things like the old like in imperfect narrator trick, especially if we think of Bilbo or some other Hobbit as being the one who wrote the Red Book. Getting dark around here. Then you couple that with the person of Gimli, who's the son of one of the dudes in The Hobbit, and some of the great battles of the First Age, and as well as the tale of Azanulbazar and the appendices, and just their odd behaviors, the masks that they wear and things like that. There's just so much cool stuff there. And I think the fact that the details we have on them are so scant, it makes them all the more mysterious and interesting. And so the Stout-axes play into that really well because they're even more mysterious, because here they are from Mordor. They're a creation of the game itself, not mentioned in the books, or as we've seen, just kind of barely mentioned in the books. So let's see if we can find out some more about them if I don't fall into a pit of lava first. I'm playing a deadly game here, friends. Yeesh. Why is that white? So let's see. We got Dark Tower, the Dark Tower, white. Huh? I think the ruins of Dingarth were white. Is there some significance to that? Did they just have a contract with the guy with a pressure washer to clean them up every couple of years? Is it some kind of ancient Gondorian architecture? I don't know. We're not given such details. Here we go. Spakorth. Some of the spirits fled into Lûghash, you say. That's no good at all. It is certain that the mistress Zora shall wish to speak with me about what her spirit saw, so it shall be my task to convince her that no threat comes to the flaming spire. I doubt she shall protest when I tell her that we drove you and your armies from Mordor. Ha ha ha. Okay, classic. I'm saddened to learn that some of my folk fell into the fires of the mountain. It seems even keeping a careful pace is no longer enough. The tremors have grown more powerful since Sauron's fall, and new cracks form in the earth with each passing day. It is a challenge to keep a steady footing when you cannot trust that the ground shall remain whole beneath your feet. We shall have to be more careful the next time, etc., etc. For those that have returned, they shall enjoy a long-awaited rest. You have done my folk a great... Okay, sure, bud. Can we go inside now? We stand before the main gate of Lûghash, but you must not enter by that way. The mistress has watching stones guarding the inside of the gate, and if you are detected, she shall bring her wrath down upon us all. Many years ago, she allowed us to construct a second hidden gate leading from our barracks out into the parapet far above us. We grew weary of her spirits lingering near us and begged her to keep the watching stones away from our barracks. We did not expect mercy, but she relented and set them only as guards within the main gate. Do you understand? You must enter through the hidden gate. Yeah, sure, bud. Behind the spire, you'll find a dirt pathway leading to Lûghash itself. You must follow our lamps of crystal to a small shadowed alcove. Okay. Well, we'll see you in there, buddy. That's a great question. Where Willow is asking where this would be positioned in Mordor Besieged. I think this is the one where you go with what's his name, and you try to take down the sorceress, but he won't. The mystery elf won't kill her, and she becomes the fire lady thing. I know I'm brilliant right now, but let's look. Actually, that is a great point. I didn't even think of that. No. Where would it be? Mordor Besieged. There we go. Amon Fuin? Yeah, you said Eckhad and Ethel. I think you're right. Eckhad and Ethel. Let's check Dingarth. So Dingarth would have been here. Eckhad and Ethel would have been here. Lûghash was here in the middle. And again, one thing that Tolkien loves to do is make the earth move around. I think it's this one. This Amon Fuin, that was that story, if you remember, where, like I was saying, you go there with some of the sons of Isildur to confront the Mordorium. But then again, it was totally black in that, so maybe it was torn down and rebuilt. That was like 3,000 years ago, so I don't know. That is a great question. I'm going to think about that one. Come on, Pellador. All right, so we're going to go up and around the back. Easy peasy. See how much easier questing is when you're over leveled and the mobs don't bother you? I actually really like that. I know some people don't, but that's not me. I like it, being able to take it easy. Yeah, if you crack the code, Werewolf, let me know. I'll be very interested. So there might be, I don't know. I'll poke around on the wiki after this. We'll see what we can see. We're coming up on our time here. So I think we'll get inside Lûghash and have a look-see, and then we'll call it a night. But I think we have a lot to go on here for a podcast episode because, well, now I want to go back to Mordor Besieged. What do you think? What should we do with the last of our time? Should we just go inside Lûghash and look around, or should we go back to Mordor Besieged and have a look-see? What do y'all want to do? What's up? That's not creepy at all. Where you been? Both. ¿Por qué no los dos? Vamos hacia los dos. All right, I think we're making a few small crystal lamps rise about the stones of Lûghash and lead upward. Yeah, all right. Ah, yes. I'm a hunter. I can actually use the hunter's camp. Such a deal. Heck yeah. Now here's the real question. Does my campsite... Let's build a campfire. Can I teleport? Okay. Return to camp. Is that in the travel options? It's in the travel options. Absolute beauty. Perfect. All right, so what I'm thinking is... We'll go pop our heads in here. Say hello to the boys. And then we'll head back in time. We go back in time. Ooh, hey, bud. You have found the hidden gates. Gimli's eager to enter. Yeah, of course he is. All right. Here we are in beautiful Lûghash. It's beautiful this time of year. No, it's not. This is a dump. Yikes. Hey, boys. Spot Spakorth standing amid the shabby... Yeah, shabby's the word. Whew. All right. I don't want to stay here any longer than I have to. Okay, so it's a dump. It's okay. But they've only been here 78 years? Well, I guess they've only been here in the months following the downfall of Sauron, because he was saying that Zorath was the only one who would take him in. I don't know. Looking pretty grim in here, though. All right, so what's the quickest way back in time? Do we go back to Gimli? Let's see. I think what we'll do, I'm trying to think of what the quickest way is, because our kin house has that little thing you can click on that will zap you back in time. I can't remember where that is in the world itself, so I think what we'll do is go back to the Casa. Well, the ruins of Dingarth will get you there too. Dingarth has the warp banner. Okay, we're going to do that. What's the cooldown on this? What? My campsite is bound. All right, let's stop wasting time. Probably be quicker just to go back to my kin house than all the way back to Dingarth. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go back to the Casa de Roxo, zap over to Gondor, and take it from there. Oh, yeah, Desperate Flight. Thank you. I'm such a noob hunter. Totally forgot about that. That would have been smart. Alas, what can you do? Well, that was a bit disappointing that our Stout-axe was not recognized as a Stout-axe. I'm going to try and do a bit more of this quest in the next few days to prepare for the podcast, and maybe we'll find out there's some kind of quest that'll tie into it. I don't know. Maybe not. It's kind of a bummer. What are you going to do? But let's at least go back in time. That'll be our last... I can't remember where my bloody kin house is. Sereth. There it is. Yeah, so we'll go back in time and find out where... if the Amanfuin looks at all like Lûghash. Because like I said, it was the end of the Second Age when that battle happened. And that was over 3,000 years ago. So it is completely reasonable to think that that tower was torn down, you know, maybe by the Gondorians, maybe just, you know, Sauron needed to renovate. He's getting tired of the drapery. He wanted to redo his, you know, bring some new life into the space, change the color palette a wee bit. Or maybe it's the same. So let's check it out. Side note, Gondor is never a bad time to go to Gondor. It's always such a great looking zone. World chat's complaining about PvMP, if you can believe it. Little known fact, the Gondorian basketball team was amazing. All that tall Numenorian genetics. They were dunking from here to the sea. All right, hands up if you have a Gondorian house, because I've never had the slightest interest in getting a Gondor housing. I don't want to hear your review. We shall be the Zillow of Middle-earth for tonight. Whoops, dadgummit. Yeah, Gunnaman was reminding us that Elendil was over 7 feet tall. It's crazy. And they do a good job with that in, I hope I picked the right boat. Jeez. Right boat. They do a good job of mentioning that and showing that in the game. When you meet Isildur and stuff, they're like really bloody tall. Okay, Where Willow's giving us a vote of confidence. It's actually pretty nice, better hook proportions and such than Rohan. Yeah, because I reason I ask is because I'm not crazy about the Gondorian aesthetic, and then I also have a Rohan premium house. I just never use it. Smaller, okay. Popular opinion says the smaller Gondorian houses have better layout than the big ones. More hooks. The dwarves have more hooks now. Oh yeah, I haven't really spent any time at all in the new dwarf housing. You forgot we got to ice skate while it loads. All right, here we go. Prepare to go back to the future. We're gonna call today. Using that has no effect. Oh no! I had to do the epic quest. All right. Well, what I'm gonna have to do is pop onto one of my other characters who has done this bit, and then speaking of the dwarves, and then I will go back and we'll have a look to see if that tower we talked about, Amon Fuin, does in fact correlate to Lûghash. I don't know. We're going to find out. Oh, poor Honor. Rest in peace, Honor. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me. Once again, my name's Shoreless. You can follow me at Shoreless, really on Twitter. If you're not a part of LOTRO Twitter, you really should be. It's where all the fun is happening. And we talk and goof around on there a lot. And that's also where I announce the latest episodes of the Beneath Your Feet podcast. You can also find that on YouTube, which I linked earlier, Spotify, Anchor FM, iTunes, wherever fine podcasts are sold. And follow me on TikTok as well if you're interested for some LOTRO silliness and seriousness as we talk about inventory management. Short of that, I want to thank all you guys for hanging out with me tonight. It was a great, wonderful time as usual. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And keep an eye out. Maybe 2 weeks, we'll have a podcast episode on Lûghash. And it is thanks in large part to you all. So good night. Bye.